Hello. Welcome to the 5th episode of Sounding the Archive. This week, or this month, we're joined by some members of SODAA Club. Thank you guys for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. Merry Christmas, everybody. We're having the show a bit early this month, so we don't clash with all your Christmas plans. And yeah, now I'm going to hand over to Henriette, who's going to introduce SODAA.
Good afternoon, everyone, and hello to the three members here of SODAA, plus a little bit of audience, and hello also to everyone online. So, SODAA is a self-organized, decentralized association of artists, including musicians, DJs, producers, coders, songwriters, promoters, and partygoers. They gather in London and via Discord server. The SODAA is founded on principles of decentralized governance and solidarity economy. They organize radio shows, parties, workshops, panels and talks, working towards a more sustainable future for music scene, operating outside conventional industry structures. Today they will give a little introduction about SODAA, but also they will see what the links are between Cubitt's archive, Cubitt as an artist-run space, and SODAA, their own organization. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Dan, Valeria, and Claire. It's your time.
We didn't know what we'd find, but there were lots of notes, emails, long past conversations. Looking and thinking about Cubitt as a co-op, different to our collective, with studio spaces, a place to show art, we thought about SODAA's formation last year online, the talks we've been having since then about finding and running a venue, about models and organising, seeking interventions for nightlife and music making, all in theory, all online. Extract from Document Your Culture, a Manual, by Emma Warren, 2021. Humans are communal. We need places where we can meet like-minded souls, where we can gather to do things that make us happy and keep us well. Fear is a virus too, and the pandemic has dented our confidence about proximity. We still need space, even if it's different to the space we needed before. Those of us who care about community and culture will need to do a better job of explaining the value of our locally influential places before we address how they'll be saved, reshaped, or rebuilt. Stories create a long view. We lack this long view because people find themselves in these spaces during a very specific period in their life, usually in youth. These places are often made or maximized by young, black, and queer communities, groups that lack structural power and are therefore easily and conveniently overlooked. Stories can act as blue plaques. The two-tall door of the archive was jammed, double our height. Warped. It smelt like wood and dust in the concrete corridor. Inside it was cold and smelt like cardboard. Dim walls covered in tape and pearlescent plastic. Piles of things, stuff, boxes, rolled up sheets of paper. The first poster we saw, a printed message, an email. Email, date Monday 26th of June 2006, subject blank. Dude, I'm so sorry. I've been in jail since we last talked. Please keep this between you and I. I'm doing everything I can to deal with this situation. Best, AA. We found a lot of emails, carefully printed and boxed. We spoke about communicating, the missed and the misspelt, and compared them to the many messages flying around SODAA's open servers. We found other accounts about going into and using this archive, previous responses to the things we were looking at. Extract from Home is Where the Haunt Is by Mark Fisher. K-Punk Post, January 23rd, 2006. 1. The sound of hauntology. Conjecture. Hauntology has an intrinsically sonic dimension. The pun, hauntology-ontology, works in spoken French after all. In terms of sound, hauntology is a question of hearing what is not here, the recorded voice, the voice no longer the guarantor of presence, as Ian Penman writes in Where the Singer's Voice Go, when it is arranged from the dub track. No phonocentrism, but phonography, sound coming to occupy the displace of writing. Nothing here but as recordings. We wanted to find administrative documents, as both collectives are aware of the importance of space and place of inhabiting. Part of the initial impetus behind SODAA, our collective, was to own and run a venue collectively. Extract from document, Cubitt Gallery Lab, 1997. Program Y, medium scale project. 1. Statement of aims and objectives. Cubitt Artist is distinguished by a creative interaction between studios and gallery. The 42 artists who occupy the studios administer the building and run the gallery, but do not exhibit there themselves. Voluntary work is part of our identity. Cubitt has no paid staff. Anti-bureaucratic and non-institutional, Cubitt Artists is an open and inclusive organisation which is an umbrella for a range of artistic practices. Its structure is informed by both the practice of artists working in the studios and that of exhibiting artists and curators. Cubitt Gallery is a partnership between exhibitors, curators and artist members. Its brief is to encourage collaborations and projects that relate to the location and specific quality of the gallery space and that reach beyond the gallery's four walls. Our collective, and Cubitt as an institution, and the exhibitions all seem to ask what it means to have, but also to share a physical space, the politics of space. Looking at these artifacts of past shows, events we never attended, we think about how to compare them to our displaced servers, stories, messages, traces of organizing, the search for money. Extract from Document Your Culture, a Manual by Emma Warren. Whilst the focus is on space and community, you can broaden it out to culture, or in other words, the material of your life. This bending of our lived experience into story shape is dosed with what Toni Morrison described as unreasonable optimism in the foreword to her novel Jazz. There is a reason for optimism. There are thousands of tiny and temporary utopias all around the world, and some of them will survive coronavirus. There are good people doing good things all over the place, and this knowledge really matters, especially when we emerge through the pandemic. Stories offer support, they create networks of possibility, and they offer a set of practical blueprints. They're also funny, relatable, and inspiring. The stories you will make offer hope and permission through example. They may help us repair and rebuild. Build your own myths, as Sun Ra said. Make the space you need. Extract from The Weird and the Eerie by Mark Fisher, 2016. Is there not an intrinsically weird dimension to the time travel story? By its very nature, the time travel story, after all, combines entities and objects that do not belong together. Here, the threshold between worlds is the apparatus that allows travel between different time periods. which may be a time machine, or which could actually be a kind of time-crossing door or gate. And the weird effect typically manifests as a sense of anachronism. But another weird effect is triggered when the time travel story involves time paradoxes. The time travel paradox plunges us into structures that Douglas Hofstadter calls strange loops or tangled hierarchies, in which the orderly distinction between cause and effect is fatally disrupted.
Cocker from 2003 as well, and that one's about who uses the space, like like it's got all these kind of images as well. Put like something like weird in the wrong place. That happens all the time.
I was also just thinking about I was thinking about how like it's interesting that all that's left of these moments, like this was someone's life, they care about art presumably, and what's left is papers, and it got me thinking about what are other ways of archiving.
Yeah.
And it made me think that it's actually quite cool that they're doing the same stuff. Like bringing life into the archive.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Well, here's three.
I like the name of this group of people as well. It's forced entertainment.
Very good.
truly colossal quantities of energy, both physical and human, end quote, that it seems to consume. His analysis starts with a house. He quickly dismisses its walls as glorified screens, dismantling the familiar image of a static, solid, and contained structure and replacing it with one, quote, permeated from every direction by streams of energy, which run in and out of it by every imaginable route: water, gas, electricity, telephone lines, radio and television, signals, and so on. The exhibition, The City is a Burning Blazing Bonfire, looks at how the spaces we inhabit are constructed, connected, and divided through the energy that flows through them, that they produce and consume. It focuses on artistic practices and works that visualize and explore relationships people have with energy and its infrastructure, including electricity flowing through the urban environment, towns built to support power generation, the polluted emissions in the air we breathe. Now, differently, there are discussions of new models of working and venue ownership among SODAA and other collectives. People talk about closures, the importance of coming together post-isolation, this concept of a right to the city via Lefebvre. Extract from Radical Spreadsheets of SODAZine 2022. Movement is the Message, a conversation with Disco by NKC. A distributed cooperative organization, aka DISCO, is a framework for organizing communities, collectives, and enterprises created as an alternative to more crypto-centric counterpart, decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAO. The DISCO project is ambitious, proposing DISCOs as a radical global experiment in economics and socio-political organization. It reboots the conventional cooperative structure of a world of expanded connectivity, federated protocols, and blockchain technologies. SODAA is similarly taking a technologically agnostic approach, recognizing the potentials and promises of the ideas proposed by Web3, whilst maintaining a healthy skepticism towards the crypto evangelizing techno-determinism and blockchain minimalism that often come with it. The ways we can organize and change take different forms at different times. Past potentials, anticipations, and imaginings, futures that may or may not come to pass, but that somehow still manifest, if only as ideas, as stories, as notes, asides, things mentioned in an email thread, printed, boxed, and stored. Extract from Out of Space, How UK Cities Shaped Rave Culture, 2022, by Jim Ottewell. Chapter 9, Utopian Metropolis in Search of the Nightclubs of Tomorrow. The common denominator of the discotheque is darkness, a small dance floor and the beat. This nightclub description may be from the New York Times in February 1965, when the new phenomenon first got bopping still feels relevant today with the occupancy of physical space vital to its existence. By stepping over the threshold into this realm and shutting the door on the outside world, individuals are free to indulge and participate in a club's night's rituals. From affirming identities on the dance floor, to connecting with musical peers, or just getting blitzed in the corner on Jägermeister and plant food, all of the club's collective and individual experiences occur within their four walls. Whether in terms of its geographical terrain, laws, music industry infrastructure, or in the warm bodies that make up a crowd, the city provides a unique zone for these nightclubs and their events to live and breathe. As the Night Fever Designing Club Culture exhibition at Dundee's V&A in 2021, clubs belong to the city and emerge when the urban fabric offers ample freedom for them to thrive. But what happens when club culture goes beyond its traditional form to inhabit new and exciting territories? The location electronic music now lives in is more fluid than bricks and mortar, while the scene and sounds are even more wildly disparate. Approaching the Cubitt archive, we wanted to think about organizing. Press releases and descriptions of events were interesting, but the random order in which you encountered exhibition papers in a box, the how and the why, the micro-politics, is what we were drawn to. Extract from Radical Spreadsheets of SODAA Zine, Technomaterialism. There is no way to deny the cultural shock caused by the 2020 Minneapolis uprising against police brutality. It was felt throughout the cultural landscape, and in particular in the dance music industry, with an increased focus on featuring black artists in the press. 2. The increased awareness of the black struggle within the context of the dance music industry was not translated into structural changes throughout the industry. Instead, we are faced with the rise of very performative representation politics, joined with a structural form of idolatry of DJs, which trumps the interests of club workers. A techno-materialist is a person who takes a critical interest in technologies and thinks about technology as an activist tool, whilst attempting to confront a contemporary reality in an attempt to articulate a radical, e.g. gender and intersectional, politics fit for an era of globality, complexity, and technology. 4. The use of the adjective materialist envisages that historical events are determined not by abstract concepts, but by tangible social relations, that the social progress is driven by the ever-evolving material forces of production, the combination of human labor and its technical means, and by the perception of those changes, by humans, social relations of production.
SODAA membership means prioritizing squad health, wealth, collaboration and equity over profit incentives, top-down management and majoritarianism.
Membership.
Where every member is involved in the decision-making process.
We aspire to create an environment where underrepresented groups, including POC, women, LGBTQIA+, and people with disabilities, are prioritised, amplified, and at the forefront.
We'll meet here and in physical hangouts, workshops and parties to work towards a more sustainable future for music scenes operating outside conventional industry structures.
How would that work? What would that sound like?
SODAA dreams of new models of cooperation.
We are an open and non-hierarchical collective drawn from the experimental music and arts ecosystem, founded on principles of decentralized governance and solidarity economy.
Hybridizing online and in real life participation.
SODAA membership means prioritizing squad health, wealth, collaboration and equity over profit incentives, top-down management and majoritarianism.
Running a music venue, trying to figure out different models for like decentralized governance.
Collaboration.
Let's challenge normalcy and replace it with an alternative paradigm.
Let's reclaim agency. Let's build this together. SODAA dreams of new models of cooperation.
How would that work? What would that sound like? 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 It's an alternative paradigm. 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 It's an alternative.
Art council funding is like, I guess it's just printed out. I guess we'll do that. It's not too much. Like nothing's stopping me from printing out.
Then you check the PDF afterwards and it looks like this.
From a Cubitt exhibition poster. And so it go, and no so it go so. Inside the boxes at Cubitt, exhibitions about archives, artworks about archives, and history, all about place, class, power. These are the discourses discord around art and music making. They do overlap, but there are differences beyond time and context. Extract from Disco Co-op Manifesto, The Last Dance, The Future is Unwritten. What is the future of work? Restoration. Those of us working on disco stand at the crossroads of various movements: open source, the commons, permaculture, platform and open cooperatives, blockchain, intersectional feminism and feminist economics, open value accounting. Individually, the change-making movements we take part in offer alternatives to the deficiencies of mainstream economic thought, but to address the root causes of inequality, we need accessible frameworks that unite them. As noted British ecologist David Fleming said, quote, "Large-scale problems do not require large-scale solutions, they require small-scale solutions within a small-scale framework," end quote. Individual commons, e.g. discos such as GMC, are small-scale, trust-based solutions. Large disco federations of open value cooperatives constitute a potential large-scale framework. We believe that greater public awareness about the power of the commons plus the disco framework can offer a vision of empowerment to counter the bleaker prospects implied by automation and avoid blind faith in the blockchain as a panacea. Restoration of our living planet, ecosystems, and human relationships are vital. This is not work for technology apart from human involvement. It will take transnationally networked and radically democratic workplaces. Participatory decision-making systems are worthy, but radical workplace democracy is needed to achieve the most important distribution: power. Discos can more effectively embed a culture of inclusion in our future organizational forms and technologies, making room for diverse experiences and expressions while respecting boundaries and creating dignified livelihoods. Cooperative frameworks. Finding new ways for showing and sharing work within established frameworks, accessing and inhabiting physical spaces, finding collaborators, co-conspirators, allies, audiences, the formation signaling inclusive and exclusive communities. These are what we hope for. For whom, by whom? We have hope, we have skepticism, but this is the future.
Possible futures. A bit of history, the space. Running like as a portal that opens up moments in the past that would otherwise be forgotten, keeping the memory of all this work alive. Little bits of paper with notes of energy. The past we're connected to, but all the threads are take up the fragility, yet materiality, tangibility. Change, collaboration, co-creating as equals, shared language, how to make art, Discord as our archive, but it can be edited, rearranged, can be had outside of it. Disagreement, messages getting everyone moving at different rhythms, potential inaccessibility. We use questions today, seeking support, funding, space, to not just survive but thrive. A way to make an impact on the world around us. We all want the opportunity, the agency to live a creativity. So what look, sound and feel like? Technology brought us together, gave us SODAA artists the opportunity to work with Cubitt's archive. Affordable space. Hitting roadblocks time and time again. Perseverance. SODAA could be more than just a model. But also autonomy. My hope for the world.
Cubitt Community Radio. Cubitt Community Radio.
Cubitt Community Radio.
Great. Thank you guys so much for that. That was incredible. Whilst we, yeah. Cool. So now we're going to have a bit of discussion with the SODAA guys. So just to introduce everyone, today we've got Dan, Valeria, and Claire with us. Thank you guys for joining. Super excited to have you here. So yeah, to get started, maybe you guys could just tell us a bit about SODAA for those who don't know what SODAA is and what you guys are trying to do as a collective.
Yeah, SODAA's been, it was formed about a year ago, and the main intention of SODAA was to kind of explore new ways of organizing, new models for coming together and working in the music industry with a focus upon having a venue. But we sort of set up a kind of, the main idea is that it's non-hierarchical. So we set up a kind of very open Discord, and then it's open, anyone can join still. To get a lot of different people together, maybe with these different ideas. But it is quite an explorative project. The idea was to get a lot of people involved and then see what different people thought and felt and wanted to do and that kind of thing.
Cool. I mean, maybe it'd be interesting to hear what brought each of you to SODAA and what you're doing a bit before that and why you thought it was an interesting project to get involved with.
Okay, sure. What was the question again? It was what brought me to SODAA? Well, okay. I was thinking about this a lot lately, actually. I think I firstly came into it with a kind of intention of, okay, if someone wants to make radical art or like art that represents kind of now, you see that kind of less and less, which is kind of what sort of Claire talks about in some of the bits there. Then it just seemed to me that to put it very basically, the profit motive kind of usurps everything in the end, and you can't get things that are saying something about this really bizarre time we're living in. But less and less so, I find I'm less interested in that, or at least as a culture, as like some sort of territory to make any sort of change in the world. I get more and more. I made the connection that you needed like cooperative economies and systems in order to have some sort of semblance of a culture. And now I don't know, as like someone who makes music, I'm just less interested in what my music is doing. To a point I am, but like I am finding that I'm way more interested in looking at cooperative ways of working, ways that are deconstructing hierarchy and white supremacy and patriarchy and all those big things that you can't really do on your own. You need other people to do that. I probably could say more things, but I'm kind of like darting around rambling. Like, someone stop me.
Valeria, how about you? How did you find yourself in SODAA?
So actually this follows along quite well with the last point that Dan was making. I feel like I've just been in my own bubble for a long time creatively. I haven't felt like I've had a consistent creative community because of various reasons, one of them being moving around. And so when I found the SODAA Discord and everything, I felt really just like excited to have people to create things with, especially with the kind of ethos that SODAA has. Like, that's something that I want to explore and contribute towards, and not just in a creative capacity, but that also gives me an opportunity to explore something that I actually want to adopt just in life. I think a lot of people are kind of feeling the same way, that capitalism isn't working for us. Yeah, there's so much more that I can say, but I think I'll pass it on to Claire.
I just got involved because I do a lot of research on collectives and cooperative works historically. So I've looked at them a lot, and I'm very into music and sound, and because I was like a researcher, but then I was exploring kind of more creative ways to do research and explore it. So the collective seemed like a good space in which to, share skills and like collaborate with people, because it's quite hard to find people to collaborate with creatively sometimes, or you don't know how to ask people how to do this or that. And as a group, we have a bit more power, so people do approach us, like even for this, to take part in this. So it gives you opportunities and that kind of thing. So I think I was very much interested in the kind of non-hierarchical format, and definitely the politics relating to it. But for me, I really wanted a space to explore more creative projects as well.
Nice, thanks. Cool to hear your insights about SODAA and why you joined, etc. But I also have some questions about the project you've worked on here in the archive at Cubitt, and a very how would you say it? Basic question is actually what did we hear, for example, Valeria, with your practice? Could you maybe tell us a bit more how you worked on it, and how you then also made a collaborative thing out of it?
I think that whenever I start a project, I tend to want to work in a way that allows the material to kind of guide me or lead the way. So when I came to Cubitt, this might be silly, I don't know, but I was very drawn to just like the sounds of the archive, the material of it. It's a lot of paper and like these like kind of card folders. So on our first visit with Claire, we recorded sounds of just like opening up the boxes, flipping the pages, talking about different things that sparked our interest, and then so I used those sounds, and then when I started listening to the sounds, I instantly heard like that different these different textures could be used to create a beat. Maybe kind of a basic translation, but that's what felt right for me. And I think even though I thought a lot about different things, in the end I wanted to express my ideas in more of an emotional way. So things that I was thinking about was like how the similarities, for example, between Cubitt and SODAA seems to be that artists kind of face the same problems every year, like trying to apply for funding, getting rejected and things like that. So there was this theme of perseverance and eventually, getting somewhere. And also Cubitt has moved a couple times, so like, how did Cubitt survive adapting to change? So that also feels kind of similar, I think, to what SODAA was doing. So and Claire suggested or made a score, so we had multiple threads of narrative. Do either of you want to talk about that?
Do I? I mean, it's hard for me to say because I only went to the archive this week, so it's only kind of festered in my mind recently. I mean, I was kind of more playing off what you two were doing, which I think leads into a corruptive thing, I guess. I don't know, whenever you talk about making any kind of art or anything, maybe I'm being too honest here, but you kind of just, you intellectualize it after you've done it, innit, which is fine, it's fun to do that. just having fun, you know. Like
Because I think all my bits were intellectualizing, but I don't really know how they fit together or anything as well.
I think
It's from all the
that's
chats we're
for
having.
someone else to decide, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, and we were having a lot of conversations, and we had chats about the archive and spoke about what it was, and I think it's quite ASMR-y, like the like recording it and everything, and how we can play with those sounds, because we were looking for sounds in the archive, but then like we weren't able to necessarily play things that were sounds when we found them. So there were sounds in the history of Cubitt, but we couldn't access them, or we could, but we maybe just didn't have quite enough time among ourselves, kind of thing, as work and labor tends to happen. But yeah, so we made sounds out of what we could find, kind of thing.
I also have another question related to the show, and especially to the word space that came a lot along. Also because this is one of your aims as SODAA, is to have your own venue. And I want to take a quote back that you spoke out loud, but that is also in the SODAA zine. Sorry. It's we go to the club to feel like we belong. We are part of an ecosystem that thrives on the mutualism between artists, workers, and sweating bodies. And yet, who benefits from the spaces we create? Space in plural. And I have kind of a broad, open question for you, and it came along actually in the show, but maybe you have some adjectives you want to put on it. And it's actually what the question is, like, what does it mean to you to reclaim a space or to make a space? Do you have specific aims and goals that goes with that, or do you what is your definition of claiming a space actually?
stop looking at me to answer the first question. I mean, I'll do it, but like, what does it mean to reclaim a space? I think it is okay. Who's claiming it, right? Who has it been taken from? It's been taken from queer people. It's been taken from black people and brown people. It's been taken from, maybe less so in this country, but in other, Australia, America, indigenous communities, societies. And I think to reclaim it, it's actually a pretty hard question, to be honest. In my sense, in I guess a more medium term way of looking at it, is you need some sort of collective ownership that also feeds into a sort of dual power alternative economy that does not operate on any sort of profit capital motive, and that there is a sort of democratic ownership of that space. People have, when they feel like they can own it, it actually means they can make tangible decisions with it, and not leave it to this kind of centralized small group that you have no idea what they're thinking or doing, and they're not being transparent, and they're probably all usually white and men, and like hopefully that answers it a bit. I think it's not easy. I think it's an easy question. I think you gotta think about a lot of really big different things. Shut me up. Someone say something else.
Something that I think is really interesting in what SODAA are doing, and I've definitely drawn a lot of parallels with Cubitt's own work and organising over the past 30 years, is the administrative side of things. Obviously, a massive part of the archive is loads of admin, so much paper, emails, and this kind of thing. Obviously, SODAA's zine is called Radical Spreadsheets. So what's your experience of the administrative side of running a collective of, I don't know how many people you have in the Discord now, but it's like a couple of hundred, no? Yeah, what's been the obstacles there, and have you kind of overcome a way of bringing hundreds of people together to run a collective?
I think the answer is we're figuring it out. That's kind of what we're doing. We're sort of trying to figure it out whilst doing stuff, really. So, yeah, we're still working on it. I think at the moment we're kind of trying to make a membership system for the collective itself. But the labour is definitely not fairly distributed necessarily. But it doesn't necessarily need to be distributed like that. It's that people really believe in things and then maybe take charge of certain projects as well. But then there are just sort of technical things that maybe, like to do with like finance and money, like which we all, because it does fall on some people to sort that out, and maybe other people didn't think about that beforehand, that kind of thing. So we're negotiating all those situations. Yeah, I think in terms of the distribution of labour, a lot of it is it's a bit problematic because you have to have the confidence to put yourself forward and assert yourself at the moment. So I think that's something we're working on, and we're trying to figure out the best way for people to feel empowered, but also included, and to be able to, if people want to do a project, they can suggest it, and if we all want to get involved together, we will come together. But we're still figuring out all the systems. But the admin for sure is a job, and it's labour, and it's very legitimate labour that we all see and value, and then we try to really acknowledge it, but it's not always working out super fairly distributed.
Do you want me to say something more about that?
Maybe it'd be interesting to hear about what the membership system is, and what that will mean for people who are members of SODAA, how that will function.
I guess that's also still being figured out, but I guess the idea is that I don't know how you would describe it. Like maybe it's like another layer or a different. It would define a different kind of participation, I guess. So people would contribute an amount every month, and then there would be more things available to them. And I think that the idea behind that is to maybe to work on some of these things that Claire was talking about, like for people who have the time or they want to commit, it could be done in a more structured way, and then there would be I guess it would just be a slightly different way of participating, and maybe those who put in their labor will get a bit more say, or maybe certain opportunities, but things are still being figured out.
So like I think we want to have it so that it's like 1% of your income is the kind of gist of how much you'd pay. Part of it is pooling funds. We've kind of got things here and there in a bank account that is a mess. We're gonna it'll be fixed this week probably, but funny enough, it's my job. Have to go to the bank. So pooling funds, and like you said earlier, there's like 300 people on the Discord. Technically, we're all SODAA members in this room right now. Anyone can be, which is fine, but doesn't mean you do any work for it necessarily. So hopefully, by sort of, I guess, having a kind of monetary value, there'll be a bit more a definition of who and who isn't in it. And then hopefully we can like redistribute that money based on who is kind of doing work within that. But it's, it's all kind of an experiment at the same time as well. I don't think we're going to get it right the first time. We haven't got a lot of things right the first time. It's messy. It's a messy thing to do. Like, to say that you want to run a completely horizontal cooperative collective. It's insane. How can you actually do that? But I think at the very least it's the idea and just trying just by doing it. At least you're doing it to a certain extent, and hopefully that at least then goes to other people and they're like, oh, maybe you can do it a different way. That's my thinking. And I'm not answering a question anymore. I just went on to my own thing. But, you know.
No, I think there's something to be said for messiness and slowness in building these kind of organizations, especially like you were saying, Claire, in terms of who comes forward to be confident enough to embrace the projects or suggest a project or become part of something. I think messiness leaves some kind of gaps for people who maybe wouldn't otherwise feel that confidence to kind of come in, hopefully, and do that. And yeah, I don't know if Henriette, do you have a question? No, okay, sorry. Maybe let's bring it back to the archive and anything specific within the archive. I think you looked a bit at the Honeysuckle exhibition, and they were also a collective working about 20-ish years ago, punk collective, and they spoke a bit about this kind of tension as a punk collective between trying to be accepted by the public in order to do their work, get funding and this kind of thing, versus doing something that's a bit more radical and not the typical thing. Is that something that you guys have, like, feel this tension in your work, or not?
No, I think it's quite interesting. We were super drawn to the honeysuckle. Like the visuals they have are really they're very nice. Like they're kind of cool layered images as well. And we're just kind of reading through some of the exhibition info as well. I guess we like that kind of punk DIY aesthetic. It's kind of, you know, part of a lineage, and some of the ideas that we're picking up, you know, go further back, and that's how the ideas behind Cubitt and that, you know, of people working, it's a bit of a different kind of space, I think, and way of working. But I definitely enjoyed finding the early Cubitt statements, and this idea of not non-institutional. I think is quite important, and we have a lot of tension in our collective anyway about how we deal with institutions and how we work with them and whether we do. Even institutionalized systems like ticketing, we're like a bit split on like how to do ticketing or if we even should. So we're always kind of picking apart these kinds of ideas. But definitely, it's hard for us to understand what's going on, let alone other people. So if you're trying to function and maybe get, I guess the point of SODAA is to support artists, but it might not be individually. It's like collective practice, I think, probably. But there's also to provide people opportunities to explore these kinds of ideas through, like, it might be through like a radio show or a project or you know, something like this, like a collaborative performance even. So I guess it's bringing it back to the politics. The politics is really quite fundamental for us at the moment, and that's definitely, it's a tension, and you're always negotiating it, but you shouldn't shy away. Like, you know, Stuart Hall said, you know, when you're talking about identities, you don't simplify identities, you complicate them. And that's kind of the idea behind it. Like, and that's what capitalism and that's what like a lot of political systems want us to do. They want us to simplify. They want us to reduce something down to a singular message. But really, that doesn't fly, and it doesn't really work. It's almost a silly thing to do. So yeah, like, I guess if you're thinking about dealing with institutions, it's complicated and difficult. But like, it's important to embrace that complexity, you know.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of open questions, I think, that are on the table and that we will bring with us after the radio show and hopefully for the rest of our lives. Dan, do you want to say something else?
There's a party on the 18th.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And actually, happy birthday. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the birthday is Tuesday actually.
All right. All right. So
and we were going to have a
people who are
meeting,
listening, and everybody else, on the 18th of December in Avalon Cafe.
Yeah.
SODAA is having a first anniversary party
Yeah.
workshop.
Yeah, no, not workshop. No, that's boring. Gosh, no.
Sorry.
No. It'll be. There's possibly like gonna be one of us like talking. It might be me in the end. I don't know. We'll see.
So this was a good warm up then.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah, there's some back-to-back kind of action.
Great.
We'll see.
Super.
It's up in the air. It's messy. It's complicated. It's nuanced. You know.
That's what we like. That's what we like.
We sometimes do this open decks format, which I feel is very cool.
Yeah, it won't be. It might be open. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
no,
we're
I
still
don't know.
figuring out how open the open decks are.
Yeah.
Super. Well, thanks SODAA, thanks Claire, Valeria, and Dan for being with us in the studio today. Thanks also to the audience here. Thanks to Andy Amirsha, who is running Cubitt Community Radio. And Charlie and I would like also to thank Cubitt for having us since August, because this was our last radio show already. We've had lots of fun. We've had an introduction to how to make radio, and we've been so inspired by Cubitt's archive, and we take it with us. Thank you very much.
Community Radio.